All right, today we're going to dive into a really fascinating constitutional puzzle from India. It's a story about the special list, a kind of legal locked box, and a huge battle over the very soul of the Constitution itself. So, it all kicks off with a pretty simple but really profound question. Imagine a law gets passed, right? Now, what if there was a way to make that law completely immune from being challenged in any court? I mean, is that even possible? Sounds a bit crazy. But for a time in India, yeah, it actually was. Okay, so let's meet the ninth schedule. Think of it really as a locked box that was built right into the Indian Constitution. The idea was that Parliament could place certain laws inside this box. And once they were in there, poof, they were shielded, they couldn't be questioned, they couldn't be reviewed, they couldn't be struck down by the courts, even if they stomped all over someone's fundamental rights.
So first up, let's really dig into what this locked box was all about and the immense, almost unchecked power that it held. You see, this created a genuine constitutional shield. This wasn't just some regular law protecting another law. No, this was the Constitution itself being used to grant total immunity. And that, as you can imagine, gave the legislature an absolutely extraordinary amount of power. And right here, this is where we see the central conflict, the main event. In one corner, you've got Parliament, the elected body, the people who make the laws. And in the other corner, you have the Supreme Court, the guardian of the Constitution. The ninth schedule basically put these two massive powers on a direct collision course. Well, as you'd expect, this tension led to a long, really complex struggle. It boiled down to this: who has the final say? Could Parliament actually use its power to change the Constitution, to take away the court's power to review the laws? It's a huge question. And this, right here, is where the stakes got incredibly high. Think about it. If any law could just be tossed into this box and made untouchable, what's to stop a government from taking away a citizen's most basic, most fundamental rights? Seriously, what's the check on that power? This exact question just hung in the air over Indian law for decades. But then, a clue emerged, a way to maybe solve this puzzle. The Supreme Court started developing this new idea, a new doctrine, a whole new way of thinking about the Constitution. They started seeing it not just as a set of rules that could be changed whenever, but as something with an unbreakable core. And that turning point? It has a name: the Kesavananda Bharati case. Now, what's interesting is that this case wasn't even directly about the ninth schedule. It was a dispute over land reform laws. But, and this is a huge but, this landmark case laid the groundwork for everything that came next. It introduced an idea that was about to completely change the game. Okay, you're going to want to remember this date, April 24th, 1973. This is the day that judgment in that case was delivered. The Supreme Court basically drew a line in the sand on this day. And as we're about to see, this specific date becomes the absolute key to unlocking that ninth schedule box. And this is what led to something called the basic structure doctrine. What the court basically said was, look, Parliament, you can amend the Constitution, sure, but you cannot damage or destroy its fundamental identity. You can't touch its core principles, things like democracy, the rule of law, and, crucially, judicial review. This was the master key. The only problem was, at the time, no one quite knew how to use it on the ninth schedule's lock. So years go by, and then the moment finally arrives. The Supreme Court is asked to go head-to-head with the ninth schedule using that very master key it had created all the way back in 1973. And the definitive answer finally came in 2007. The case was I.R. Coelho v. State of Tamil Nadu. This was it, folks, the final showdown. The locked box versus the master key. And just to give you a sense of how constitutionally massive this moment was, a 9-judge bench of the Supreme Court was put together to hear this case. We're not talking about some minor legal clarification here. No, this was about defining the limits of power at the absolute highest level. So what did they decide? Well, the court's final verdict was actually brilliantly simple. It came down to a two-step test. Step 1. Was the law added to the ninth schedule on or after that super important date, April 24th, 1973? If the answer is yes, then you move to step 2. Does that law violate the Constitution's basic structure? And the verdict itself was crystal clear. Any law put into the Ninth Schedule on or after that 1973 date, it's no longer immune. The lock was officially picked. The courts could now open the box, take a good look at what was inside, and throw out any law that messed with the Constitution's fundamental core. All right, so what does this all mean in the grand scheme of things? Why does this one judgment from 2007 matter so much? Let's break it down.
Well, the impact was just profound. First off, the judgment totally reinforced that the Constitution is supreme over everyone, and that includes Parliament. It also created this vital shield for our fundamental rights against legislative overreach. And maybe most importantly, it restored the balance of power between the lawmakers and the courts, establishing one clear, powerful principle. In India, no law is above the Constitution.
So what's the big takeaway here? The Ninth Schedule? It still exists, it's still there, and it still offers a shield for certain laws. But, and this is the crucial part, thanks to this case, that shield is no longer absolute armor. It can now be tested, it can be questioned, and it can be pierced if it's ever used to protect a law that strikes at the very heart of the Constitution. And all of this leaves us with one last big question to think about, one that goes way beyond just this one case. In any democracy, who or what is the ultimate guardian of its founding principles? Is it the will of the people, expressed through the lawmakers they elect? Or is it the wisdom of the courts, whose job it is to protect that core document itself? There's no easy answer, but it's definitely a question worth pondering. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.